Hi guys, it's Angie with Fun Endeavors Tie-Dye Lab. Today let's make a gravity dyed mandala. I'm only going to put the mandala on the front of the shirt, so I need to isolate the front of the shirt. To do that, I'm going to grab the top, and I'm grabbing the top shoulders of the shirt and finding the center of the front of the shirt. I'm folding the shirt in half, and I'm using a washable marker to make a mark right on the very front part of the shirt at the center. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom of the shirt. I'm going to grab the corners of the shirt, fold the shirt in half, and find where the center of the front of the shirt is. So once I've made a mark at the top and once I've made a mark at the bottom of the shirt, I'm going to grab those two marks, lift the shirt up off the table, kind of give it a shake, and then I'm going to lay it back down. And that should isolate the front of the shirt, where I have both sides of the front of the shirt right up next to each other, and the back of the shirt is the fabric that's back behind the sleeves of the shirt. I'm going to use a washable marker and make a mark where I'd like for the center of my mandala to be. And I usually like my center pretty close to the armpits of the shirt. Then I'm going to fold the bottom of the shirt up to that mark that I made and fold the top of the shirt down to that mark that I made, kind of starting sort of an airplane type fold. Now I'm going to stick a straight edge underneath this seam, lift the shirt up off the table, and fold it in half. I think putting the straight edge underneath makes it a little bit easier to do a nice fold. The part of the fabric that you see kind of hanging out that is not folded into the shirt or the mandala portion is the back of the shirt. I'm just going to leave that part of the fabric alone for now because that's what's going to be gravity dyed later on. I'm going to fold each side of the shirt or each side of the front of the shirt down one more time. This is going to give me an 8-point mandala. I'm also going to use the washable marker to mark where the neck of the shirt is. You can't see it because it's on the inside portion of the shirt, and I don't want to extend my mandala beyond that point. For this shirt, I'm going to use some hemostats, and I'm going to use some curved hemostats. The hemostats that I'm going to use on this shirt are 10 and 12 inch, and I've coated them with some heat shrink tubing. I purchased the heat shrink tubing at Lowe's or Home Depot, place it over the teeth of the hemostats, and then I use a heat gun to shrink it to fit. If there's any additional tubing hanging over the edge or the ends of the hemostats, I trim it off with a pair of scissors. The heat shrink tubing helps to protect the hemostats from damaging my fabric or poking any holes in the fabric of the shirt. So I like to experiment with placing hemostats on the shirt a little bit differently each time. So for this shirt, I'm going to extend the hemostats all the way across the shirt, pretty much the entire width of this fold. So the first hemostat I placed at an angle with the curved side facing down, right at the very end or what is going to be the center of the mandala. Right now I have the second hemostat facing down, but I'm going to come back and change that and face that hemostat up. The rest of the hemostats I'm going to put at an angle with the curve facing up as well. Then once I have all the hemostats on the shirt, I'm going to come back in and add some rubber bands around the handles of the hemostats. I had a viewer suggest doing that, and it works out great. It helps keep the hemostats on the shirt if they happen to pop open. They also don't fly across the room, which is another huge bonus. Then once I have all of the rubber bands on the shirt, I'm going to place this shirt aside and I'm going to allow it to dry out completely. I like to dye thick folds like this when they're completely dry. I think I get better color saturation throughout the shirt and especially in the center of the folds. If you'd like a little more information about this topic, I have a blog post addressing this topic out on my website, and I have a link to my website down below this video in the description. So for this shirt, I've chosen some blues and some grays. I'm going to gravity dye this shirt, so I'm ultimately going to take it outside for the gravity dye portion, but I decided to apply my dye while the shirt was still inside. So to do that, I've taken a plastic tote lid, placed it on my table so that I don't get any dye on my dye table. Then I've added a metal rack over the top, and this is one that the legs will either fold down flat like these are or extend up. I have the legs folded, and I'm placing the part of the shirt that I'm going to apply the dye to on top of this metal rack. I've tried this technique before where I apply the dye inside and then take the shirt outside, and it worked really well. I didn't get quite as many little flecks of dye because I don't have the wind factor when I apply the dye inside. Because the shirt is completely dry, I'm going to lightly spray it with a little bit of soda ash solution that I've placed inside of a spray bottle. That will also help keep the dye on the shirt a little better. So let me tell you the colors that I'm going to use on the shirt, and I'm going to apply them starting at the center of the mandala, going out toward the edge. I'm using Frost from Delula Company right in the very center portion of the mandala. And then I'm also going to apply a strip of Frost and every other color down at the very end on the outside portion of the hemostats, going, I guess, vertically on the shirt. It's horizontally right now, but as it streams down the shirt, it will stream vertically down the shirt. The next color I'm using is charcoal gray from Dharma, followed by blue MX2G from Custom Colors, iron gray from Dye Spin, and mom jeans from Dharma. Mom jeans is one of the special order colors that Dharma Trading Company has. So you can still order that, but you would have to order a really large quantity of that dye. Otherwise, you can usually find it at a Facebook group called Tie-Dye Supplies Marketplace. And I've left a link to that Facebook group down below this video in the description. People out there buy the really large quantities and then they package them down into smaller quantities to sell to people. Okay, so now that I have the dye on the shirt, I'm going to add an additional sprinkle of dry soda ash over the top of the dye. And then I'm going to place the ice on. I'm going to use one fairly large chunk of ice and a couple of large ice cubes on the shirt. Then I'm going to take the shirt outside, and I have a metal rack that is like a shelving unit that I leave underneath the trees. And I'm going to take this metal rack that I have the shirt on right now and place it on top of that shelving unit. I'm not going to put or leave the lid underneath this rack though. I want the dye to be able to flow away from the shirt. So I've included some process photos so you can see what my setup looked like, and you can see how the shirt looked as the ice melted and the dye ran through the shirt. So the goal for this is to have the dye streak all the way down the shirt. And what you can do to kind of encourage that, since this shirt was completely dry, is spray it with some soda ash solution. And that's what I did. I placed some soda ash solution in my squirt bottle, and I sprayed the gravity dyed portion pretty well with soda ash solution. I got it pretty damp. Then after that first layer of ice melted, I came back and added a second layer of ice. By the time the second layer of ice melted, it was starting to get pretty dark, so I took the shirt and placed it down inside of a plastic container that has a metal rack down in the bottom. I put the lid on the container and I left the shirt outside. I left it for about, a day and a half, 2 days, and allowed it to process in the heat. Then I took the shirt to my utility sink and I began rinsing it in cold water to rinse out the soda ash. The reason why I placed the shirt inside of a container and put the lid on the container is so that it wouldn't dry out while the shirt was processing. At the time that I did this shirt, it was still pretty warm here. It was still in the 90s. And I didn't want to leave the shirt overnight without me being able to watch it, spray it with soda ash solution, or add more ice so that it didn't dry out. The dye had already flowed to the edges of the shirt by that time too, so it wasn't going to hurt anything or change the look of the shirt to lay it flat inside of a container to process. Okay, so after rinsing for a while in cold water, I warmed the water up to hot, and I took the hemostats off of the shirt and continued rinsing in hot water to rinse out the excess dye that didn't bond with the fabric. I don't like to rinse for a really long time, so instead, I prefer to soak the shirt to get out the excess dye. And to do that, I run some really hot water in my utility sink, add a little bit of Blue Dawn dish soap to the water, place the shirt inside, and just allow it to soak. When the water cools off, I change it out, and I continue that soaking process until my water is remaining almost clear. Then I put the shirt along with some Dharma's professional textile detergent into my washing machine, and I wash it using a hot water cycle. Okay, so at this point, I've washed, dried, and ironed the shirt, and let's see how it looks. Okay, so what do you guys think? I think this one looks really cool. I think that the flat photographs that I've taken make the shirt look just a little bit darker than it really is. When you come to the mannequin photos, I think that's a better representation of the color of this shirt. But I think that the colors overall work really well on the shirt. I think it's really pretty. Love the blues and grays together. And if you're wondering, that very last color that I used, the mom jeans, that's where that kind of purpley look is coming from, which I think is kind of cool. I also really like these mandalas that I do gravity dyes on. I like the design on the back. The way the dye flows on the back of the shirt, I think they look really cool that way. And of course, I love the front of the shirt too. Love the mandala. I love the dye flowing away from the mandala. And if you've ever wondered, I get asked the question all the time, can I make that hemostat mandala without hemostats? Well, the short answer to that is no. I mean, hemostats give a definite look on a hemostat mandala shirt. But this one, because I extended the hemostats the entire width of the fold, you can do something similar with this one. So if you don't have hemostats and you wanted to do a shirt that looked sort of like this one, you could tie this one with sinew. Your sections or your lines are not going to be as perfect as they are with hemostats, but it'll still be kind of the same shape and it'll be a really cool shirt. So the other thing is because I applied the dye inside and it wasn't blowing around when I was trying to apply the dye, I didn't get quite as many sprinkles or flecks of dye on this shirt. Now, just because I applied the dye inside and then took the shirt outside doesn't mean I'm not going to get some of those, because where I live, it is windy all the time. I just happen to use colors that either didn't speckle quite as bad or I made it outside without the dye blowing around too much. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm going to have to try applying the dye inside for a few more designs. Some of them it isn't quite as easy because of my setup, but with this mandala it worked great. So overall I really like this shirt. I think it's really pretty, but what do you guys think? Please drop me some comments down below and let me know. And if you've enjoyed the video, I sure would appreciate it if you would like it and if you'd subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you'll hit the bell, you'll receive a notification whenever I upload a new video. Thank you all for watching, and I hope you have a great day.